the journey. And this is another thing that I've also learned. I was reading the portion which we'll be reading this week, the third day of Shabbat. This Shabbat is Janet. We'll be going into the book of Exodus, Shemot. And as I read through beforehand, I was reading throughout the week, and I realized, goodness, there's a daunting task upon us all. There's a mandate upon us all. When you read in the book and you realize when Yahuwah first introduced himself to Moshe through the burning bush, when you look at Moshe's life, a lot of us can probably relate to it. Before God finally introduced himself to Moshe, and Moshe was 80 when he started to finally be introduced to, when God finally made himself known to him. So, a lot of us are in our 20s and we think we're supposed to get it. I'm going to say this. I'm not trying to get off subject, but I'm going to share some wisdom with you. In your 20s, expect to be dragged through the dirt. You don't get your blessing in your 20s. You don't. You get tried in your 20s, and life itself your entire life is going to be trial and tribulation. But I'm telling you now, your 20s is going to try you. You're going to be dragged through the dirt to see if you can make it to your 30s. Especially in this day and time. It may have been different from other people, but I'm learning that your 20s, you're not going to be recognized. You're not going to be acknowledged. You're going to be continuously thrown under the bus. People are going to look at you and say, you're too young to know what you know. We're not listening to you. So expect that in your 20s. And I'm not saying it to be negative from my experience. I'm just saying again, my experience may be totally different, but I talked to many people in my age group, and we realized that this is just your 20s. I'm only saying it because I'm giving you reality. Don't grow up thinking that your 20s is going to be this party lifestyle. Don't look forward to that. Look forward to a spiritual insight to your 20s. You're going to be tried, and it's just like Yosef. In his 20s, he was like 17, but that's and that thing is amazing because even when I was 17, that's when my mind spiritually opened, my consciousness went to a higher level, and ever since then I've been on this a journey, and it continues to elevate and elevate. Sometimes it gets knocked down and you got to elevate, but the thing is, you're not starting from scratch. However, I'm just throwing that out there so you be more realistic about life. You're going to be tried in your 20s by God. If you're committing yourself to God, yes, you'll be tried. If you're committing yourself to other things, okay, your life may turn out a bit different. So your 20s is going to try you. You don't get your blessing in your 20s. You get blessings. I'm talking about your life's blessing. I'm not saying you won't. You understand? Know the difference. I'm not saying God is not going to answer this prayer and that prayer. Everybody's relationship is different. But to be a more realistic young person, your 20s is going to be trial, tribulation. You're going to go through an identity crisis. You're going to ask, who am I? Where did I go? And it's all just to see if you're worthy. So as we were speaking about this, Moshe, again, he didn't meet God until he was 80, but as I was saying, we may be able to relate to him prior to his life journey and leading up to meeting Yah. He was being tested. He was born in a wealthy family. He was able to get education and all this good stuff through the Egyptian family that he was born into. He was taken under. But then, again, I'm sure he grew up knowing that he was an Israelite and knowing that he was privileged, but also seeing that these people were treating his people bad. And Moshe had to run. Imagine you going through that at a young age. Imagine I'm sure he had to be in his 30s, 40s maybe. This was before he was of old age, before he had children. So he was a young man. The story is not his whole life. It's just a synopsis. So, he was tried before God introduced himself to Moshe. He had to run for his life, escape. The king of Egypt, the society that ruled the world at that time, was after his head. So he had to run. And so I'm just saying, relate to that before you meet God, before you have to be tried. You're going to go through a lot. And a lot of times we like to disassociate what we go through from God, but God is watching you. He's trying to see, are you worthy enough to meet? God is looking at you from it's as if I'm just putting it in a physical perspective. We know God is not a physical form, but just so that you and I can comprehend. It's like you are miles and miles and miles away, and God knows that you're running to him, and he sees you falling, but yet he has the power. He blesses you to get back up. He's watching you try your best to meet him. He's miles and thousands of miles away, but yet he sees you afar off, and you can see God afar off, not physically. You just see that light, and God is watching you. He's watching you fall. You might get bloody, you might get bruised and wounded, but you're not going to die. Unless, you're not going to die, and God is watching you, and you're falling. And then there's some days you're running as fast as you can, but you're really not that close, but you're getting closer. And so that's kind of how the relationship is when you are finally committing yourself to God at a young age. You're going to go through a lot. And it's just like Moshe, like when I was reading this, I'm like, this is just life. You see, this is a story of all good people. You go through a lot before you finally meet your maker. And so, again, you're just going through all of these things until one day you finally meet him. God has to prove and make sure, are you, it's like those sperm that are swimming. The best one meets the egg. The best humans meet God. They reach the mountaintop. And it's a battle that not everybody's willing to commit to, because you have to be strong. And you're going to be trying. The spirit of error is going to try and knock you off your course. And some days you may not even know that it's that spirit of error trying to knock you off your course. You have to just be strong. And the more you commit yourself to God, the closer you get to him, the easier it gets. That part is true. But the starting of the journey is not easy. But don't let that discourage you, as I always say. Don't let it discourage you. Keep going. And so I just want to go back to the story of Moshe. As I'm reading Exodus, the first few chapters, I read like between chapter 1 and 9, and throughout the whole week. And it's now Shabbat, so we'll be going through the first portion. But as I'm reading, I'm like, wow, this is amazing, We have to really use these concepts, these biblical concepts. These are not stories. These are life lessons that you could take so that you don't have to walk in the same wrong footsteps, but you can walk on the path of those who are good. But as I'm reading it, Moshe is now introduced to Elohim. Yehovah showed himself to Moshe, and this journey. Now, at the age of 80, Moshe is finally meeting his life's purpose. 80. So don't expect it too soon. It may be different for you and I. It may be. You understand every man, every woman's life journey is different, but don't expect it so early. If it comes, then you knew it was coming. God will show you. But now I realize, as I'm reading this, the history of Moshe, he already told our father Abraham we would go into captivity and then we would come out in great abundance. And now he's reiterating, my people have been through this. Basically, I'm telling you that I'm about to deliver them. And when you read it, you realize, just as God explained to Moshe, I'm about to do this, and this. Pharaoh's not going to let you go. It's going to take a lot for him to let you go. I'm going to harden his heart over and over. I sat back and I said, for every one of us, there's a mandate, there's a purpose already established. It's already there. Yehovah already said for Ohadah, I have this in store for her. She's supposed to do this at this time, and when she gets there, that's going to happen. This is going to unfold for her, and that's her life's journey. For every one of us, we have that mandate upon us. You've already been called. You've already been chosen. It's a matter of whether you're going to prolong that. And I say that because God told Moses the purpose of the destination. But the daunting task is getting through the journey. And so I've started to rewire my mind lately through my journey and my life lessons that I have to learn from. And sometimes I have to learn the easy way. Sometimes I have to learn the hard way. But I've learned to expect this outcome and enjoy it. Expect this to happen and enjoy it. Don't look to the destiny. It's just like this. Let's give something in common you and I can both speak with. And I speak of you hear me speak of a relationship often, not because personally it's going on in my life, but because life itself is a huge relationship. So I'm going to bring that up. Most young people my age, we're looking for a spouse. And so most of us, we're looking at that journey for marriage. We're picturing the wedding day, at least for women. We're picturing the wedding day. We're picturing the ring, the dress. For men, maybe you're picturing all the things that you were able to accomplish for your woman. You were able to get the house, get the car, make her secure. Maybe you're thinking of those things. But how many of us are looking forward to the arguments? How many of us are looking forward to the disagreement with that spouse that is to come? You understand? So I'm teaching myself to rewire my mind. Okay, expect the disagreement and enjoy that. Don't look towards the destination, because when we get what we want, we're going to want more. Once you get a house, you're going to want to, once you get a place, you're going to want people to get into it. Once you have the people in the place, you're going to want certain people in it. You're going to want certain people gone. What you understand? So humans, we're never going to stop wanting. That's just our nature. So I'm teaching us. My thing is to teach you to expect the small things on the journey. And we hear this often, enjoy the journey. But really put that into perspective. Put it into place. Put it in your head. Enjoy those disagreements. Look forward to, I'm going to disagree with them. We may not get along. Let me enjoy that and not the destination. And so taking it back to Moshe, God had told him everything that was about to happen. But we didn't know it was going to take us 40 years to get that. But I must ask us, did we prolong that as Israel? Did we prolong that? You understand, we all have a purpose, but are we prolonging our purpose because of our complaining, our lack of understanding? And one thing it even said that stood out to me, I will read it. I will read it because it's important to know. And this stood out to me. And I read this story years after years after years. But, again, when you open this book and you investigate for yourself, you look at the Hebrew and you're understanding it from a different perspective. And you're seeing it's totally different. It's totally different. Okay, here it is. So, and again, I like to speak for you from life experiences, but I'm always going to refer to the book because this is my history. And I would be remiss not to teach from the histories of my forefathers. So don't run away because I opened this book. So it's chapter 6 of Exodus, and it is the 9th verse. So, God is already telling Moshe what's supposed to come. And this is after Moses finally goes up to... This is after Moses he first goes to Pharaoh, and he tells him, the people, let the people go. And now Pharaoh is upset, and he makes it harder on the thousands of Israelites. And now they're made to complete an impossible task in an impossible manner of time. And so it's even through the journey, things like that are going to happen. People are going to blame you for a lot of stuff that God told you to do. But it was just so funny because I'm as a 20-year-old, we're not the most patient people. And this hit me because it's I can take this and maybe it can help you. And Moses spoke into the children of Israel. You have to read it, the whole chapter, but basically this one verse. And Moses spoke unto the children of Israel, but they hearkened not unto Moses for impatience of spirit and for cruel bondage. Right now, a lot of us are being oppressed, whether it's the bosses on our jobs, whether it's just the world in itself and society and those who rule it, or you're going through a lot in life. That cruel bondage can also, I took it you're going through a lot of hardship. And sometimes you're just not going to listen to someone that tells you it's going to be okay. God got you. Sometimes we just don't want to hear that. Like I said, and also because impatience of spirit, you want to see God say he's going to do this. I want to see him do it now. But we have to take these lessons and from this history and not repeat it. Don't, because your life is going hard, give up on God or stop listening to those that he sent to you to give you a message. Don't give up on God because of impatience of spirit. Because the children of Israel, it takes 11 days to get from Egypt to Israel, from what I'm told and what I know. But it took us 40 years because we prolonged. God is outside of time. Time does not affect him. So he has a mandate. He's going to do it. But it's the right people who's going to come together and finally say, you know what, we're going to submit. We're going to do what God said he's about to do this for us. Let's just go with the flow. And that's the most important thing. Just go with the flow of life, because it's a daunting task upon you. But there's a destination that you're going to be taken to a destination. But how will you react? How will you carry yourself throughout the journey? How many sins will you mount up to heaven throughout the journey? How many times will you obey and disobey God? And so we have to be more introspective of ourselves. And don't let the worldly things get you off focus, because you don't have a lot of time to think of these things when you're scrolling on Instagram, when you're chasing after love, chasing after money. It takes your mind off of God. And I'm not saying don't desire these things. I'm not saying that. I'm saying repurpose how you're desiring them. Repurpose your priorities. What are you truly prioritizing? Because God gives everything that we desire. But if we go after him and we jump the gun and go and get it before him, as we see, a prime example of this is God. Even when King David made his error, he sinned. God said, all you have to do is ask and I would have given. But when we jump the gun, we may jump it in sin and abomination. So just learn to slow your roll in life. Let things pass. Let them happen. I'm telling you, let them happen. Let them happen, because it's part of the journey. And that's my word to you.